Welcome, Supers, back to another Shark Tank Tales. I'm Super Joe Pardo, and today I have an entrepreneur who was on season 13, episode 12 of Shark Tank with her business, her swimsuit line business. I'm excited to get to talk to our guest today. So before I get there and we talk to the founder of TA3, I need you to give some super claps wherever you are right now. Watching, you're listening to this in the car. I need some claps. You're in the bathroom. Let's get some claps going, right? Let's get people feeling weird and awkward, and that is where we will find growth. Well, not in the bath. Anyway, everyone, give me some super claps for Super Leila Shams. Woo! Welcome, Leila. How are you doing today?
Hi. It's actually Leila. I know my name
Leila,
is spelled Layla, but it's pronounced Leila. That's really, I always say my parents misspelled my name, or they mispronounced it, like one or the other. And actually,
well,
I'm Persian, which is like Layla is the proper pronunciation, but I don't know. I was brought up as a Leela, so I'm a Leela.
oh, it's no problem. I apologize then. I mean,
No
technically,
problem.
the E and then the I, so it's not like
It's a
Lila.
it's it's a Layla, like neighbor, like it's an A sound. Like I said, it's on my parents. It really is, but it is what it is.
I'm no stranger to butchering names here. For anybody that's watched the channel for a long time, so let's see. So how did Shark Tank happen for you? Did they reach out to you? Did you apply to be
No.
on the show?
I applied. The first time I applied was, gosh, it's hard to think of the timeline because it's almost like the whole like COVID era is like compacted. But I applied a year before I actually got on. So when I applied on the website, I'd always wanted to be on it. So once my business was like anywhere near getting to the point of launch, I hadn't launched yet. I applied on the website and they called me a couple weeks later and I was like, I was so excited. And I was like, this is it. I'm getting on. I didn't have any sales. And it was actually right at the beginning of quarantine. So this was like February, maybe February 2020. And I hadn't launched, I didn't have any sales. So I kind of got through like the stage where, so basically, once you kind of get through that initial thing, then they ask you for a video. So I made the video and then they went dark. It was done. So the following year, I started emailing the person that I had been talking to initially. And I was like, you're going to pass on me again? Like, how is this happening? Like, this is my dream, And she's like, we're actually not passing on you. I was like, and I was like, please let me remake the video because, like, everything's totally changed. I've launched the business doing well. They were like, no, the video is fine. I'm like, all right, okay. The thing with Shark Tank, and this is like the tip I can give anyone, and they will tell you this at every stage of it, infomercial energy, right? You need so there's two things you really need to get on. One is an original idea, and that's something because they don't want you coming on there and you've got a really close competitor or there's some sort of patent issue or whatever, or it's going to be boring if they've had the same type of product before. So they want an original idea and they want you to have that infomercial energy. And like every time you do a rehearsal or you send a video or anything, it's like you gotta like bring it. Like you can't talk in your normal voice, you gotta like scream basically. And for me, that I get really high pitched when I'm like excited and I'm like, oh, I listen to myself on Shark Tank. I'm like, I can't. I'm like screaming. But like that's what makes it fun to watch.
It does, right? I mean, that's part of the allure of that's like one of the cornerstones of the differentiators, right? Because everybody has different businesses, they're in different niches and everything, like niches, but at the way you conduct your pitch, the way that you bring something different to the table is the infomercial style, but it's like what's going to get their attention out of the gate, what's going to make it, because they say like the bigger the stage, the bigger the arm movements need to be, right? In acting,
Right,
and it
right.
needs to be because you can't, and especially when you're talking about like Shark Tank now, where they're not like 5-6 feet away from you, they're like probably 15 feet away from you, and then spread out on top of that.
That room is so big. You cannot get the scale from watching it on television. But if you really watch, there's like a table and chairs. I swear to God, nobody ever talks about
top.
this. Yes, there's another floor. It's enormous, that room. So yeah, you really have to be like big.
There was a picture that on the Shark Tank Facebook page that they just posted, I think like I'm gonna say Thursday or Friday from last week, where they took it from up there.
I think they're standing on that little thing that I'm talking about.
That's what I'm thinking. I doubt they brought a ladder, right, just to take that photo. But it does make me wonder, like, who's sitting up there? Like, it has to be function, because it's a set, right? Everything is intentional when it comes to film or movies and or television.
I don't think anyone's sitting up there. It's just
designed
like, to look like an extremely big conference room, basically.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was much bigger because you don't see it until right before you film. I think before COVID, you would actually like rehearse in that room. Maybe, I'm not sure, but like now you don't see it until you're pitching. It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. So you get the news. Okay, you're going in. You got picked. You're going to do this. What's your next steps, right? Because you're trying to get a business off the ground. Were you still working in the industry at the time, like for a big box?
No, like what I actually did. So my last job for like a corporation was, I live in LA now. I was in New York. I moved to LA. I stopped doing those kind of jobs, and I was consulting. So I was helping other brands launch their lines. So I was still working on that when I first launched my brand. I think I was doing that for like a year. So I was consulting. I wasn't working for those big companies anymore.
But okay, so then that in some ways is better and worse, right? Because if you're consulting, or, you have money coming in as well as trying to get a brand off the ground, and now you have this pitch that like potentially your whole world could ride on, a life-changing, I don't want to say decision, but a life-changing event could be riding on this. So how did you go about balancing like a fledgling company? Well, virtually fledgling in the grand scheme of things.
How dare you?
Well, in the grand scheme of things,
kidding. I'm just kidding. No, it's a lot, but when you're an entrepreneur, like you're always juggling a lot of things. It's fun, it's a lot more fun than like, crying about. It's like yesterday I just found out all my boxes are damaged, like spent my whole day trying to deal with like the water damage from it sucks. It's boring. It's no fun. It's like rehearsing for Shark Tank and getting it. You know what I mean? Like that's fun. Like that's what you want to spend your time doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. They say. Well, actually, I could say as an entrepreneur, there's things that we find more fun than others, and then we find ways to find those time to be able to sink into those things. Like, maybe if I just updated my website, and then 6 hours go by. Or maybe I just do
the
this
stuff
one
that
thing.
you like. Yeah, you just like go all in, and the stuff you hate, it's like, like I actually like. This is totally not scalable, but we run a lot of Facebook ads, right? Facebook and Instagram ads, and I respond to every comment on the ads. Like, nobody else does that, right? And people are always like, social media manager, like you're hilarious, like you need a raise. And I'm like, it's like I don't want to tell anybody, but it's like I'm the CEO, but like I just love that, it's so much fun. Like I love like like making some little funny comment and like going back and forth with my customers. I find like my customers to be really funny, and the whole thing is kind of funny. It's like it's like this swimsuit that's like cinching you in, and like people just say funny things, whatever. So yeah, like I'll sit up all night like responding to comments on ads, but then it's like, yeah, like there's other stuff where it's like, oh no, I don't want to deal with this at all. You really put it off.
I look. I say this in most of my videos when we go through the reviews that are there of the businesses that that we react to and review here, and it's like. One thing that gets me mad is Amazon stopped allowing the sellers to be able to respond to those reviews.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to start like a hashtag movement against that because you need to be able to respond to the positive ones and the negative ones because
Exactly.
you can't change the mind of somebody who had a really bad experience, but you might change the mind of somebody that's reading that bad experience that says, I found that helpful. Next. And then they move on, right? Without any
Exactly. And
opportunity to
we
make it better.
always, yeah, I respond to, like, if anyone has something negative to say, I respond. And if someone leaves a negative review, I actually don't respond to the positive reviews. I probably should. That would be nice too. But it's like you're trying to read a bunch and you're trying to find your size or whatever. But I always respond, or try to the negative reviews, and try to explain to people, like, what happened and how we fixed it and why it was an issue. And that's why, like, people are like, why aren't you on Amazon? I'm like, I'm terrified of Amazon because, like, people can say anything, and also, like, the way they do their reviews is like the least, the meanest one often comes up first. You know what I mean? It's not the most recent. It's not like the most helpful. It's like, if a lot of people like thumbs up the mean one, then the mean one comes up first, and you're screwed. Like, I would never delete or hide a review, but, like, when you look at all of ours, and you can sort it by most recent, you can sort it by positive, you can sort it by negative, you can sort it by most liked, you can sort it by photos. Like, that's the way it should be. It's like Amazon kind of just like decides what your fate's going to be. It's not really fair to brands.
That's that's very reminiscent of another company that people really hate, which is Yelp, who like
Yeah.
has some really nasty practices, like not recommended reviews of your restaurant or establishment once you stop paying for their services.
Yeah, it's
So
so
they you still
evil.
have them, but they subtract it from the star rating and then move them at the very bottom in like a link that says other unrecommend not recommended reviews or
Yeah,
unrecommended
it's
reviews. And
and,
it's
and
like
same with Amazon. Like, they have ulterior motives. They have their own products that are competing with these products. So, like, the fact that they can decide your fate on, like, how your reviews are going to be seen. And so many times something will have five-star reviews, and then you go in and the first review is like, this is the worst thing I've ever, blah blah blah, and you're like, oh, I'm not buying this. It's just not fair. I mean, I have someone on Facebook. You can't control Facebook reviews in any way either. It is what it is. And, like, all my reviews are so positive, but this one woman's like, this is an outrage, blah blah blah. Like, she just had a problem with shapewear in general. And then, like, I had an ad that Mindy Kaling commented on. She's like, oh, I want this, like, and she's like, the Mindy Kaling promotion should be, like, cracked down on, blah blah. I'm like, you think I'm paying Mindy Kaling to comment on my ads? Like, first of all, that's not a gig that she's offering. I don't have the money to do that. Like, but this woman gave me 1 star, and it took down my whole thing. She never tried a suit. It's just fucked up. Oh, sorry.
it is. No, it's all right. No, it is. It
Yeah.
is messed up like that. And the reason that's one of the reasons why I always recommend, because this happened to a friend of mine who has a pressure washer business. Somebody actually paid for negative reviews to be on the Google, on the Yelp, and the Facebook, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, like his, he had, I don't know, like he had a handful of reviews. He'd been in business for a couple of years, but he never really hammered home like I need to get reviews. So when somebody dumped in a whole bunch of very obviously not South Jersey, outside of Philadelphia people, all reviewing at the same time, it's like, well, when you look at the star rating, it's like, well, you went from a 4.8 or whatever, now you're at like a 2.1, and now I'm moving on to the next person,
Right.
the next business. And so it took him a while to get those deleted. And in the meantime, he went and took the initiative. He actually got on the local news for that. Because somebody paid,
Wow.
went to like Fiverr or something and like just paid for a bunch of negative reviews to go there and screw
Yeah.
things up for him. But in the meantime, he's like, well, I got to get every person I ever worked with, I got to get them to do reviews, and it's something to preemptive, in that case. because you want to make sure that if somebody decides, boop, like, and now you're spending weeks or months to get that fixed.
Yeah. I mean, reviews are great. Of course, we all use them. We all love them. And I know a lot of my customers decide to buy the product because we had a lot of great reviews. And we ask for your height, your weight, what size you normally wear. Not everyone answers all those things, but when someone's saying, "Oh, this fit me," or "This was too long," or "This was too short," and you see all their stats, that really helps our customers probably more than anything else. So reviews are amazing. It's just, yeah, it can definitely be abused. It's really, it can make or break your business.
It can. I mean, one person, well, a good friend of mine, she just started her own business, and she was like, "What can I do about stopping these negative like reviews from coming into my business? Should I just shut down like the ability for people to comment on my social media and stuff like that?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, no. You want people to comment. You want the good, you good, and you take the bad. I get bad comments all the time on my stuff." All the time.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible
Right.
person and all these things.
Right. You have
And
to take it with a grain of salt.
yeah,
And
I just want
as a consumer, we know that there are going to be some people that are not happy. Like, we know one bad review shouldn't change it. It's just, if the first 5 reviews you read are all bad, then it's like, yeah, I'm probably not going to buy it. But I think if you like poke around and you're like, okay, there's like positive and negative, and my friend, I mean, I think also, and that's why Facebook particularly is so powerful, because if your friend comments on a post or comments on an ad and says, "Oh my God, I love this," or even if it's not your friend, but it's a real person, because Facebook, it's really, I don't, I mean, of course, all the stuff happened with Trump and Russia or whatever, but like generally it's like they're real, like especially on my ads, they're real people and they're saying, "I bought this and I love this," or "My friend loved it." And that is so powerful for people to see, probably more than reviews, because you're actually seeing the person who's attached to that profile. And to me, the conversations that go on in ads probably have had a better effect on my business than anything else. And that's like me talking to my customers, but also my customers talking to other potential customers, and like building a little community. So when I see a company that's putting their ads out, they have tons of comments, no one's responding, or maybe they just responded to the beginning ones, but they kind of stopped responding, and they don't say anything about the negative ones. It's like, it's such a missed opportunity.
it is, and that's I mean I mean I don't know about you, but I read other Facebook comments on ads for
Of
fun.
course,
Like
always,
it's just
always,
so
yeah.
it's so
And
fun to see
sometimes
what the
they're
reaction
hilarious.
is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I said,
they
like, I actually
absolutely
did
are.
a post, because like what people always say about mine is like, because there's ties and you pull them and they're like, "Oh, I would look like a busted can of biscuits in that suit." So like, the last shoot I did, like a model like opening a can of biscuits and it popping, and then she turned around and it was like, "Look, it does." So I was like, everyone always says it's gonna look like a busted can of biscuits, but it doesn't. So it's kind of like, and sometimes I'll like post like, screenshots of people's comments on the ads and stuff like that. Like, people love that. It's so much more fun than just like, "Oh, here's a model.
Yes, I post my negative comments all the time on Facebook. If we're not friends on Facebook, then
Yeah,
we
they
should be, because
love
there are
it.
some. Oh my God, it gets so many people. Because the way I always respond to them is, I appreciate you watching and commenting, and
Right.
that's it. And then usually those people get hit from the channel, so the comment, because I don't want a toxic community under my videos. So we try to promote positive, and like I can't tell you how many people have come to me and like, you showed me the light, Joe, like how to respond to these negative
Hmm.
people for my podcast, for my YouTube channel, for my business, for this, that, the third. Like, it's you can't argue with somebody who has no skin in the game. That
Right. Yeah.
like
And I
random
appreciate that.
account is just
I love the positivity in your comments, and I loved, how much conversation was going on in your comments. Like, I also went into the Reddit, because Reddit does, like, every entrepreneur, they have like a Reddit. What do you call them? A
honestly, I haven't
forum.
been over there. I need to probably go over there.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough in there. It's rough in there. Let me tell you. Like it's like the conversation that's going on yours and the conversation that's going on Reddit are like night and day. Like, everybody on Reddit is an expert. They're all. I mean, this one guy like went off on me. He was like, "You should have done this. You should have done this. This is why you didn't get a deal." Da 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 da. And I was like, and he's like, "And your suit looked like shit," or something like that. And I'm like, sorry. And I'm like, I thought I looked cool. Like, that's all I said. You know what I mean? So he goes on the email, he emails my customer service and like goes into like deeper, like more detail about his comments. I'm like, dude, like, you're there for 45 minutes, like you pitch for a long time. Like, you don't know everything I said. Like
Mhm.
for someone to sit there and say, you should have said this, you should have said that. I understand why they reacted because of this. It's like, you've got to take it with a grain of salt. Like, this is television, like, you're not watching the whole pitch. You don't know everything I said.
You know what? And I think that is one of the best testaments to me that I've gotten to date. So thank you for that. Even though you weren't talking about me, and I just
No, I
technically made it about me.
that's why I
But
wanted to come on this. I was like, first of all, you nailed my business when you talked about it and like the like the positives and the negatives. And second of all, everyone was like, almost everyone was so positive, which is so nice. Like, it's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to be an entrepreneur. And I think, like, now I watch Shark Tank totally different, because I used to be the same way too. I was just like throwing stuff at the screen, just like, take the deal, you're crazy, like, this will change your life. It's like, but there are, we all have businesses and different motivations, and Shark Tank is a big part of your launch or of your product or whatever, but it's not the end all be all.
yeah, it does. It does. It can be a big piece, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And in a lot of cases, I would hope that it's not, because you look at some of the success trajectories on some of those businesses that have been on the show. If it was only because of Shark Tank, you know what I mean? Like, they never would have reached the success that they got if it was just because of Shark Tank.
Exactly. And I mean, I think it speaks to the casting process. I think they're really good at casting, and they're really good at finding businesses that have potential. They don't just want like one hit wonders, and they want entrepreneurs that have potential and businesses that have potential. So I think that's part of it. Um, I think Shark Tank definitely helps propel, especially if you get investment, it's going to propel your business. But 100%, which is why they don't invest in everything. If it was a sure thing to go on Shark Tank and have your business become huge, they would invest in every single one. You know what I mean? It would be an automatic return. But they know that's not the way it works. Like, so much depends on your product market fit, the team, the entrepreneur, how good is your marketing, blah blah. So yeah, it's a piece of it. It's similar to like Shark Tank is like 4 or 5 million viewers. If you go viral on TikTok, you get the same number of viewers. So like, it's amazing. You'll get a huge burst of sales, but it's not going to make or break your business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And to speak to the positivity, look, I try my best to keep positive myself, and keeping, and cuz like sometimes I get comments where they're like, "But Joe, you sounded a little too unsure, and you should not say the word I don't know." And I'm like, "Look, I have the confidence to say I don't know." Okay? If you want somebody to
Exactly.
just spew whatever coming out of their mouth, like whatever's coming out of their mind, then that's somebody else. That's not me. And with that said, like, I also understand that, first off, you're a real human being, right? The sharks might be playing characters; they're still human beings, but they're playing characters to a certain extent on the TV show. And you combine that with the fact that these are real businesses, that these real people have actually invested their time and have, skin in, well, not in every case, but which I will get. I could tell you, sometimes it gets a little hard, because I try to keep it positive, and I'm like, oh God, this is real. I gotta find the light somewhere. But
Right.
with that said, I I do my best to keep it positive, for and constructive. And sometimes the answer is I don't know, with keeping in mind that I'm not seeing the full pitch. I know that it's
Exactly.
45 minutes, it could be an hour and a half,
Hmm.
2 hours even. I mean, I've heard up to 2.5 hours with one of the
Right.
people that I've gotten to interview here on the channel. So you're only seeing a small sliver of like what actually happened. And sometimes to make a definitive, slam your fist on the table and that's the way it is not the most intelligent thing, right? They say the smartest person in the room
Exactly.
is sometimes the quietest.
Exactly. And also some people who just like don't come off that well on camera, And sometimes I watch it now that I know how hard it is and how much you have to prepare. When someone stumbles on an answer, it's not that they don't know it. It's that they freaked out. You know what I mean? Because like I was watching one the other day where they were like, what stage is your patent in? And the woman was like, blah, blah, blah. It's like they ask you about your patent a bazillion times. Like you all that, that stuff like backwards and forwards, like and like it's like me when I like forgot my line. It's like it's not like, oh, I just randomly decided to go on Shark Tank and I just wandered into the tank and like it's like, no, you really do prepare a lot, and your numbers backwards and forwards. There's so much of that. Everything about your patent or your competition or your projections, all that stuff. So if you mess it up, like it's because you're nervous. I find it really hard to believe that people go in not knowing that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree, though. I will say, if I was in your situation where I forgot my line, it's not just, okay, I'm blowing it in the minute, in the moment. I'm blowing it, and they might end up airing it as part of the episode, and now I have to be able to like, boop, like get my focus back together, grab the room back, attention back to
Right.
me, and move forward. And that, I mean, that to me is like that's where my mind would probably go, is like if I messed up and now like all of a sudden like I'm starting to like trip over myself even further because now I got
You
now I'm
start to
running,
spiral.
the cameras are facing me, and this might end up on TV, and like the moment could become so out, like it could spiral out of control for somebody so quick, especially if they're maybe more of an introvert, right, and they're trying to
Right.
project this version of themselves that is maybe a bit exaggerated, because again, the size of the stage, the bigger the arms, kind of thing.
Right. Right. And I think I was trying to go so big. I mean, there's a million reasons why I forgot it. But the bad thing for me, too, is I had models that were dancing in unison to my pitch, like you didn't see it, but like it was like, I'm seeking $500,000, and they did like a money thing, and then like they had a dance move for everything I said. So when I fumbled, like one of them just like drops her robe, like the other ones are like I totally threw them off, and that was like when I really like when I was like because I was like, oh God, I threw them off, so it made it even worse. And when I thought, oh, maybe they'll edit out, it was like they can't really, because the model, like there were like, even if they tried, which I don't think they did, it would have been hard because there were so many different elements going on at the same time.
So at what point did you decide that you wanted to have models involved in the pitch? Because that adds a really big dynamic of having, people dancing and doing, motions to your pitch.
I wanted to do that the whole time because I wanted to demonstrate it. And actually, I think the year before you weren't allowed to bring anyone. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was kind of like that lull in COVID, like before Omicron, when like things loosened up. Because I wonder what it'll be like this year. They were very strict about COVID. But yeah, I just knew I wanted to demonstrate it. Like the thing that sells the suits a lot, and like all my videos that have gone viral on TikTok, is like, which is never how I intended the product. I never intended it to be like a corset. The lacing serves a couple purposes, but when a person just pulls the ties and their waist gets smaller, it's a really easy way to see what the suit does, and there's no other product really that has, in the shapewear or the swimwear market, that has something you can demonstrate that easily. So I knew I wanted to feature that because that always gets people's attention.
Right, and I mean, that would probably, I mean, did you, I guess you figured it was easier to have a model do that than you there doing that, right?
Oh God, I would. Yeah, how weird would it be? I don't know. I can't imagine coming out there as an entrepreneur in a swimsuit and like high heels, because I always like the girls to be in like high heels and full makeup, like in a swimsuit. Like, I mean, honestly, it works amazing on me, which is like, and I'm in a lot of the ads, but I think that would be weird to do.
Well, I think it was the Bayou swimsuit. What did that in season 12? I think maybe last season, maybe I don't know season. Yeah, I think it was season 12. She was out there in the swimsuit, which I forget which landlocked state they were from, but like
Wait, is that
for
the
the
one that
beaches of
like
Iowa.
opened on the sides?
I
I remember there was
think
like a husband
so.
and wife, and there was like a
Yes,
swimsuit that opened. Yeah, so you could go to the bathroom easily.
I believe that's what
Yeah, they were
their
from the
differentiator was.
Midwest or something like that.
Yes, 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 yes.
And I think they did get it. I think Barbara did it. Did Barbara invest in that? I'm not sure.
I mean, if someone was going to, it probably would
I
have
I
been
knew I'd have an
Barbara.
uphill battle with Barbara as much as I love her because I know she's like had some issues with swimwear in the past. It's a really hard market. I totally get it.
Yeah, and I mean, just like any fashion, right? Having to dump the clothing and stuff. I mean, so let's because I do have questions about the advice that both Damon and Barbara gave you, but so you got your pitch together, you get your well, you're already in LA, so and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they moved back to LA for filming this season from Las Vegas.
Mhm.
So they you get there. And are you feeling confident? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling,
Oh my God. I mean, it you get there really early in the morning and we had hair and makeup and we had the three girls. And then you get your COVID test. I mean, you get through the whole process, you get tested a bazillion times. And you get to like meet the other entrepreneurs and stuff like that. But like mostly, and like anything with TV is kind of the same way, like, or movies or whatever, like you just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. We waited all day. We were in a trailer all day. It's a long day. They film, I don't know how many pitches they film a day, but we were like one of the last, if not the last. So you have like so much adrenaline in the beginning, and then by the end you're like, oh God, I just want to do it, like. And they just kept like, I don't know if this is too behind the scenes, but like you can't have anything like visible or anything that might be trademark, copyright, any sort of issue, right? So
well, that's most TV in general because they don't want to
right. So one
blow
of
it
the
out.
models had a lot of tattoos. So they just kept coming, taking pictures of the tattoos, doing a search, and then they'd come back and she'd be like, "Oh, I forgot to show you this one." And then we'd have to like cover it with makeup. So like there's like this whole tattoo thing that went on all day. It was like the whole thing just dragged.
Oh wow, that's not something I would generally think about. But I guess when you're going out with a swimsuit, there's
Yeah, you see
enough
the whole
body part
body.
showing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even like the little ones that you might
Right.
not notice if you're wearing say pants
Right,
or a long sleeve
exactly.
shirt. You just wouldn't
Right.
see. So
Right.
that wow, that definitely is something that is something to consider when doing that. So okay, so yeah, so I'm assuming they don't tell you when you're going out. Like they didn't tell
No.
you like you're gonna be the second to last, which to me would add
No.
the add to the nervousness because you don't know when you're going out, and you
Oh,
also
I would
don't
have killed
know.
myself. Like nobody wants to be last, like
Well, that too, right? Because you don't know if they're in a good mood, bad mood. How the day
right.
went for
I think
them.
it's fair to assume they're in a bad mood if they've been watching pitches all day.
It is a brutal schedule. When you think about each pitch being 40 at least 45 minutes and they're there all day, like that's a lot to put on
It's a
even
lot
sitting in
and
a
you're
chair.
like giving it your all, like I mean they have to react to every statement. They have to like if they're uninterested, they're not doing their job. So they really have to like give a lot to each entrepreneur and each pitch. I mean, it's a lot of work. I have a new respect, definitely.
So you're walking down the hallway and how are you feeling? Are you feeling confident in your pitch? Are you feeling nervous? Are you worried about the moves? Is there anything
Well,
that's
and I said, and again, I'm not sure if this is behind the scenes, but this is really more of a me thing. Um, the I had originally had a different model, and she decided like right at the end that the pitch was problematic for her. So she had had issues with eating disorders, and originally my pitch talked more about food. Like if you see in the background, there's pizza. My original website, which I just changed, it had like the model with eating nachos, or like the models with a bag of chips or whatever, and it's like eat backwards, and the whole idea is like you can eat and still look in your swimsuit. That was triggering for her. Some of the verbiage in the pitch was triggering for her. She didn't feel comfortable, right? And so she dropped out. And so A, we had to find a new model, and B, I had to rethink what I was saying, and if I felt comfortable, like if she's feeling triggered by it, if she's feeling uncomfortable about it, there are going to be people in the audience that also feel uncomfortable about it. So I really had to rethink what I was saying and how I was presenting the company, and um, all the food stuff. Like a lot of people would be like, oh, so you're saying that like this makes you gain weight and blah, 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 blah. Like for me, it's kind of like funny. Like I always felt like I had to diet before I went on a vacation to look good in my swimsuit, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So that was like the basis of the company. But like food stuff is triggering for people. All the weight loss, weight gain, all this stuff is very triggering for a lot of people. So I rewrote the pitch to be less. She told me the stuff that she didn't like, and I wrote that stuff out of it. So um you rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and it becomes so automatic, your pitch. So when I changed some of the lines, it never felt that automatic. I always wanted to go into the other pitch, into the initial pitch. So that was really, if I hadn't changed that pitch, I don't think I would have ever stumbled on my lines, because it was like I was doing it in my sleep. And even the whole day, like while we were waiting, I was just doing it over and over and over again. I mean, you also have a lot of stuff you're thinking about, like, I'm a fashion designer. Like, I'm not a finance person, I never have been. Like, thank God I found someone great to put my stuff together. But like you also have all the numbers in your head, you know what I mean? And actually, like, the way it aired reflects more of like, we really didn't talk that much about numbers, but man, did I have a lot of numbers in my head. You know what I mean? Like, you have the numbers about what, like your margins and your revenue and your net revenue and your gross revenue and your projected revenue and your projected revenue for the next year. And then you have all the numbers in your head of what if they say, okay, instead of 10%, I'll give you 20% for this. And then you have to do all those calculations. You have to be prepared for any sort of offer they give you. So like, I actually worked with 2 different coaches, really just to help me figure out the financial part, and help me figure out how to present the financial part. And there are a lot of pitches that go really deep into financials. And I never thought in a million years that I wouldn't get an offer. My numbers were extremely good. My customer acquisition cost was extremely low. My margins were good. My sales had been great. Like, to be honest, and this is a warning to anyone, like, I never thought I wouldn't get an offer. So I was so prepared for negotiation, and I was not prepared for them to maybe not be that excited. Like, I should have prepared a lot more when for someone going, "No, I don't like it. No, this isn't my type of thing. Oh, I don't want to deal with inventory." And I should have had like answers for all that stuff. But for me, I was just like so ready to get my offer and negotiate with them. Just in retrospect, is so naive. Like, when I watch it, I'm like, why did I think it? Like fashion in general, they hardly ever invest in. So
that is a huge lesson, right? In
mhm.
the preparation, not just knowing the numbers, and also, like, because I get a lot of crap on this channel for not knowing how to do math in my head on the fly. I shoot all my videos in real time, so like I'm not
Right.
stopping the video to like do the math on the thing. I'm trying my best to get as close as I can while keeping the video moving forward and all of that stuff. So like, yeah, I'm not a mathematician in my head. With that
Yeah, and when
said,
you don't have that in your head, you have to memorize everything. It's way harder than being able to calculate it.
yeah, no, that's a fair point, and not get them confused, because then you start getting confused,
And
and it's
not
like,
look
well, wait,
dumb.
well, hey, you don't know your numbers, like what's
Yeah.
going? We're making good TV here, like
Right.
hooray!
Right, exactly.
What is that? A truck of money backing up to our warehouse? Like awesome, hooray! Um,
Right.
So having, but I think the important thing there was having the answers to questions that aren't number related, right?
Yeah.
What's the term I'm thinking of? To the, not disagreements, the like to the cons of your business, right? Like, oh well, you're gonna have all these inventory issues and things like that. That I mean, any business can have inventory issues. It doesn't,
Right.
even if inventory is not the main driver of the business, there is inventory. Like pens, you could overbuy your pens, or buy
100%. I mean,
Gucci
especially if you have
pens and
multiple SKUs, like your inventory is always going to be an issue. I mean, I totally understand what he's saying. I've worked in this industry a long time, and if, especially if you have a ton of SKUs, and they talk about SKUs a lot, and really, I should have been better about pointing out how few. But if you have if you come out with your season of, and this is what happened with my old business, you come out with a season of stuff, maybe you sell it, maybe you don't, maybe the customer likes it, maybe they don't, and then now it's winter, or now it's that color is out of style, or that style is out of style, or what, you can't keep selling it, so any sort of like trend driven or seasonal business has inventory issues. They were absolutely right about that. Like with me, and what I didn't do a good enough job explaining is, like, we have very limited styles. We have 3 styles. We have very limited colors. I'm not. Everyone's always, I want a print. I want this. I want that. I'm like, no, no, because like I've played that game before. Like, so, most people hate it, and like no, like keep it basic, make it work, focus on like making it work as well as possible. We'll throw in a fashion color every once in a while, but like I totally know what he's talking about, what Barbara and especially what Damon was talking about, and that's why I I I have the business that I have. That's just extremely limited.
I appreciate that, right? Because I don't want to see people get, burdened with the inventory that can happen very quickly, and it makes sense as to why the high fashion is so expensive, even though the costs are relatively low, because you have to deal with things like what Damon, and Barbara brought to the table now. And you don't have to speak on this because I get it if you don't want to, but one of the commenters down below said, in the super community, point out that, they don't want to see the Sharks go, but like maybe these, our current Sharks have been down too many roads to want to take a chance on something that isn't necessarily even a high risk, in my opinion, isn't high risk, because if you're not like, hey, I got 600 SKUs right here, let's go. Like we're going to town with this, and we're gonna win this battle of fashion with just sheer amounts of money poured into inventory and getting us out there. But so because it's a shame, right? Like who did you go in wanting to do a deal with?
Lori or Barbara, because they're women. I mean, I kind of thought Damon would be more excited about it, but I wouldn't have ever thought like Mr. Wonderful or Mark Cuban would be into it. I mean, I didn't think they would be negative about it, which they weren't really, but like I kind of assumed it would be one of the women. But in retrospect, the fashion industry has changed a lot very recently. I mean, I've been doing this I'm 47 years old. I've been doing this. I started working in the 90s, right? So I know everything that Damon's been through, and he's worked in wholesale businesses, and he actually talked a lot, like, which wasn't aired, about other businesses that he's struggled with. You know, there are a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues in the industry with fit. There's a lot of issues in the industry with inventory and returns. But direct to consumer is very different than wholesale, and it has very different challenges, and needs a different skill set. And I think it's younger people that have had, or younger entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm not young, but like, if you've been in the fashion industry a long time and you never really worked with this type of business, it's like limited SKUs, direct to consumer, heavy in the Facebook ads, viral on TikTok, all that, like, you're probably not going to be that familiar with it if you were in the early 2000s, if you were more active then. I think that was a lot of Damon Sing's, like a lot of his stuff was like the industry the way it was, which was very wholesale driven. Like he talked a lot about the back door, which is like you put your stuff in Costco and you put your stuff in TJ Maxx and stuff like that. I've worked for all those businesses. I'm familiar with that. But it's like you don't see, I could be wrong, but I don't think you're going to TJ Maxx and seeing like an Aloe Yoga or like you're not seeing these like newer like direct to consumer brands. They're selling straight to their customers, so they're not dealing with like a department store buying this huge amount of inventory and then saying, oh, they didn't sell it and you're stuck with all this stuff. Like you can really cut to what you're going to sell. You're much more, what's going on with your customer. Like my best selling style right now is something that my customers asked for. They were like, I launched with 2 styles that were kind of high cut and they showed your butt. And they were like, no, we want something that's more full coverage. So when I launched the full coverage style, that became my best selling style because that was what my customers were asking for. And now they're asking for an underwire style and I'm going to launch that style and that's going to be huge. And I know it's going to be huge because they've been asking me for it. You don't get that when you're working with stores.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, having that feedback, you're lucky if you hear anything back.
Exactly. I worked with department
not
store
just in
businesses,
fashion, but like in general.
Exactly. And that's the problem with Amazon too. You don't own your customer. Your customer is Amazon's customer. So like I talk to my customers every day. I talk to them in the DMs, I talk to them in the comments. My customer service person is like texting me all day long with like a picture like, oh, do you think she needs the short or the long or whatever? Like we are so tuned into what our customers need. You wouldn't get that like working with a third party.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you said you don't own the customers, but you don't own the relationship. I would say
You
the
don't own the
relationship with the
relationship.
customer.
Right.
And I mean, like, and that's again, anything where you're selling to any third party to go and sell it, you definitely don't. And even Amazon, where it's like it's online, but you can't even reply to the reviews.
Right.
That's very much to me. That's a huge problem, a huge drawback from the advantage of
Exactly.
having an online business in general. So.
Exactly. It's about relationships. I mean, you see that with what you do too. It's like you build these relationships with people, and that's why they like you. And that's why they're not, even if they're not happy with something, they're not going to go out and like trash you all over the internet. Whereas like
Shh, don't
if
give them
you're like,
ideas.
yeah, it's all about relationships in life too.
Oh, 110%, 110%. And I think, but you probably are on something there as far as like, I mean, I haven't seen any hate elsewhere about it other than just down in the comments of, again, people who have zero skin in the game. They have no, it's not like they have their own channels, like they're where they're showing up stuff and it's like, where we can, cook up some beef here and then actually, work off of each other's stuff. It's like, no, you have zero, skin in the game. There's no videos. There's no anything created. You're just passing them through and have something that's really negative to say and not even critical, or like constructive criticism to be able to like build off of.
I mean, I know you were talking about doing stuff on TikTok. That's where you'll open the floodgates.
I'm working on it. I am working on it.
It can be rough. It can be rough on TikTok. Like people do not hold back. Well, again, because you don't really have a relationship with them yet. But like once you have like your people on TikTok, I think it's different.
Well, that's one of the hardest things about having so many YouTube videos at this point is people find the old ones, right? Because they're like Googling up a Shark Tank business or something, and they get there, they say something negative, and I'm like, but I have all these people that like, but nobody's watching. My people are starting to go back to the beginning of the catalog and work their way through. So I'm starting to see those comments where people are like that I left because they weren't super rude. They just were like not nice. And I was like, okay, you know what? I appreciate you watching and commenting. And then they're starting to reply to them. And in some cases, they're being as courteous as I would want them to be, which is that's the whole super thing, right? Like that's what it's about, is bringing the best out of yourself and the people around you. So like that's, and I want them to stay that way. Don't, listen, don't go going crazy and start like a flame war or anything like that. We're not going down that route. So okay, so you wind up not getting a deal. How are you feeling walking out of the tank and heading home?
Oh my God, I was so upset. I was so upset. I can't. Uh, because also you don't know how it's going to come. First of all, you don't even know if it's going to air. And it was a very good, you have to talk to a psychiatrist after, and that's public knowledge.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, give it to me straight. Are they airing it or what? And that's why, like, in my exit interview, I was like, oh my God, like, at least just air it, like, because it's like, you put so much work into it, then you bomb. I mean, I bombed on so many levels, I forgot my pitch. I didn't get an offer. Like, there was like minimal enthusiasm, it couldn't have gone worse. I was so upset. And he was like, everyone told me I did well. They were like, you did well. The models said you did well. They get to watch it. And they were amazing. The models were so great. They put so much time and so much effort into it. And to go out on television in your swimsuit, like, that takes a lot of balls, So everyone was so nice, but he was just like, you did great. They were a little bit low energy, so like it might not air. It wasn't the most exciting. There wasn't a, which you can plainly see when you watch it. There wasn't a lot of like heated back and forth, you know what I mean? Which is like what kind of makes it exciting. It turns out probably my saving grace was that I forgot my pitch, because that made it a little bit more entertaining. You know what I mean? And I got aired, because like if it's too boring, they're not going to air it, especially if you don't get a deal. So maybe that worked out for me. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
really
oh
think
god.
there's much I could have said to change their minds. I mean, I definitely, I could. I did say a lot more numbers, so they really did have a good understanding of how good my numbers were. And I think I said this on one of the comments, that like they kind of know what they can bring value to and what they can't. And like like I said, if it was a sure thing that airing on Shark Tank would make you this huge business, then they would invest in everything. So obviously, they want to make sure that they're going to get their money back. And the one way they can really make sure they can do that is if they know that they're bringing value, and if they're not sure that they can bring value, then they're kind of relying on you. And, um, like, especially if you hear like Lori or Mr. Wonderful, like they talk a lot about like what their current audience is. So what their email list looks like, what their social media looks like, what they're going to promote, and what, and a lot of this stuff is like very easy to like what we really noticed from all the customers we got after the show, and all the, the customer service inquiries and blah, 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 is it was more of an older customer than what we normally have. And I think it's it's a demographic that's more likely to buy a sponge, than they are to maybe like a somewhat sexy swimsuit. You know what I mean? And I think they're probably aware of that too. Like what products are going to absolutely catch fire after being aired on the show, and what aren't. Mine's kind of a harder
Well,
sell.
I tend to disagree though, and the reason is Mr. Wonderful has his Mr. Wedding Wonderful
Right.
line, right? And it's like, well, who's getting married on his Mr. Wonderful like wedding list, right? I tend to think there's at least 50% of females that are on that, on that email list, and it's like, well,
You know what? That's such a good point. I should have said that, because women buy it all the time for like if they're getting married or bachelorette parties, like a whole bachelorette party will buy my suit. Oh my
oh well,
God. I
oh,
should
see,
have talked
that's
to you
the
before. That would have been such a good pet. I didn't even
see.
think about the wedding thing. The wedding thing is huge.
I
Yeah.
think it gets so downplayed with him because, and I think he downplays it himself. Like, in a lot of ways where there's things where it's like you already have this demographic of people. So, like, after you get married, what happens, Mr. Wonderful? You have kids. Maybe,
Right.
probably, right? I don't want to
Right.
project too
Right.
much on everybody, but like the odds are you're in that demographic to do that. You're spending money like Mr. Wonderful kind of, like Mr. Wonderful wants you
Yeah.
to be. you're probably going to buy whatever, toy thing, contraption, like, to me, like, that's the next step. Like, let's
Yeah.
segment that list into who got married and who is most likely to, react to a kid thing.
Good
I don't
idea.
know. To
And
me, it
like
just
all
makes
my
sense.
customers
But
are like, I have so many customers who are like bachelorette parties or brides, and I also have a lot of customers who are new moms. So yeah, that's a really good point actually. But I think it also gets kind of hard because it's like I'm trying to build a brand, and I think I have a lot of different elements going on because I want to be sexy and I want to be cool, but I also want to be very like authentic and I try to mix that all in on the Instagram. I don't know how well I'm doing on that, but it's like when I think of like Mr. Wonderful mass emailing his entire email list of everyone that just had a baby, like, or I don't know, I'm like, is that really like on brand? But I guess I don't know how it works. I'm sure we
well,
would
Mr.
say like
Wonderful does a
we
lot of things that is not
yeah,
on brand. That is not on
right.
brand. For like $500 for a while there, you could like get him on Cameo to promote literally whatever your product was.
Exactly,
And
exactly. And I think it is a little bit scary when you're like, yes, I have a product that does something. So part of my business is very as seen on TV, right? But the other part is a fashion brand. I want to have to be a little bit glamorous. I want to be a little bit, it's a higher price point, like something that's like aspirational. So, people are like, oh, like you should have said like you would go on QVC or whatever, which A was not offered, but B, it's like, would you see Skims, which is Kim Kardashian's brand on QVC? No, you would see it in Nordstrom's. You're going to see it in like these high end department stores, but like,
the ones
no,
that are
they're not
closing,
really doing that. What?
I said the ones that are closing.
I know.
I don't mean to laugh because
But like,
it pains me to say that about any business, but like the
I
world is
know
changing.
department stores are like a dead business. I know, but it kind of makes your name, it like elevates it a
Yeah,
little bit.
it's
I
a
mean, Skims
yeah.
just got valued at $3 billion, so whatever, they're doing something right, like, and I'd be very happy to be like the swimsuit version of what Skims is doing. So, I mean, they're going to launch swimsuits. They're going to launch swimsuits. Knock on wood, they're not shaping, or I will kill myself. I don't think they will be. But to me, that's the like they're amazing at branding. The photography is beautiful. They're so inclusive, they're so they have such like a you see a photo and it's Skims, so like
Mm.
that's the ideal. That's where everyone wants to get in fashion, from a branding perspective. So it's like, yeah, I mean, when I really think about it, it's like, oh well, I would have wanted investors, but I would have wanted to keep like 100% control of my brand. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that, and people tell me that now, because now we're a lot bigger than we were when I pitched. And um, now, around August, September, we want to raise like $4 or $5 million, right? And it's like
Mm.
everyone just keeps saying, like, you just have to understand it's not going to be the same. Like, you can keep growing it like the way you're growing it and make a good amount of money for yourself. Or you can like really try to be that $1 billion brand. You have to take in a lot of money, and you have to get a lot of a lot of feedback and a lot of like oversight. And I'm like, I mean, I will be ready to do that. But I think for me, it worked out for the best that I could grow it for another year the way I saw it and really kind of develop like our voice and who we see our customers as and everything. And then we can really blow it up and get a ton of money instead of like having to sacrifice, you know, a lot of equity for not a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean that's always the balance, right? Is how much are you willing to, control, are you willing to give up and all that. But that's one of the reasons that you should go and blow up the company yourself as much as you can, so that when you go and raise that 4 or 5 million, it's like, all right, we gave up like 20%. I don't really have to give up control versus like I need 4 or 5 million. Well, I'm gonna take like 65% for us to get, for us to be able to get there. And it's like, well, now you're working for somebody else. You end up being an employee in your own,
Exactly, like, I
your
don't
own
wanna work
prison.
for anybody. Right, exactly. It's like, the whole reason you go into being an entrepreneur is, like, you don't want anyone to tell you what to do, which is why, like, everyone's like, "Oh, why didn't you take the deal with Lori and license your" it's like, that's my biggest nightmare. Like, nobody understands. It's like, to, like, take this thing that I've, like, all this blood, sweat, and tears, and, like, you make this, like, you finally get this thing that works and that like makes your customers feel amazing. And like I get to talk to customers every day who are like, I haven't worn a swimsuit in years. Like I was never able to enjoy vacations. Like this is life changing or whatever. Like that is so gratifying. And the idea of like being able to build this company huge and still have it be mine and my vision versus like, oh, Lori's going to take it and license it out to some random company. Like, and that's why I was like, so everyone's like, oh, you should have just left the door open. I'm like, but that door was not open. Like, that's just not an option for me, you know? And then like anyone who's ever launched their baby, it's like, it's one thing if I was like this inventor and I'm like, you has that some people come on Shark Tank and they have like a ton of different inventions, you know, and you're like, okay, that's fine. You're going to like license this thing out and then you're going to do this other stuff. But like, no, like that's just, it was like so the opposite of my vision. I'm like, I would never do that.
And speaking of the patent, because I know we got to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. Did your patent go through?
No, I'm hoping. I mean, so there's a couple stages of the patent. First, they asked me, I had like a lot of different sketches and they asked me to edit down to like one thing, which I did. And then they came back with prior art, which is like things that they find is similar. And actually, the prior art was really, really different. So I think we're good. So then we came back with a response to the prior art, and we're supposed to hear within a month, like within this month, I should hear. So fingers crossed. That would be so, because especially now that I've been on Shark Tank, I live in fear. Like I do not want to be knocked off. Like supposedly, like even if you have a patent pending, like apparently Amazon is really good, and that's like the thing I fear the most, because it's like you search for TA3 and it's like TA3 dupe Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, but like Amazon is very good about knockoffs, especially if you have a patent. But I think even if we have a patent pending, we'll be able to kind of fight off knockoffs there. But yeah, I don't want anyone doing anything even close. So yes.
It is, yeah. I mean, that is a scary thought, right? Especially because like somebody could make a swimsuit and sell it for a lot less money because it's a swimsuit. It's not a tuxedo or
100%.
something. I don't, you know what I mean? It's not like where it's
100%.
like,
Yeah.
even on the cheap end, it's still going to be, fairly expensive
It's not a
endeavor
wedding
for
dress.
somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I could get crushed by a knockoff, but we do also have like, because I'm so obsessed with this and we're constantly fitting and we're constantly tweaking the fit and we're constantly coming up with new ideas of things that'll kind of do the same thing. Even if someone knocks off exactly the products that I have right now, I could still keep launching products in the same vein that would do the same thing. And we do plan to do dresses and tops and all this stuff. So I don't think it would put me out of business if someone did a very similar knockoff, because we're already thinking of how to develop it into other things, but it would definitely suck. I mean, saying that, there's brands like Somersault, Andy Swim. Those are huge direct-to-consumer swimsuit brands that are mostly one-piece swimsuits. And I mean, I don't know how well Andy's doing right now. I know they've gotten a significant amount of investment, but I know like Andy Swim's gotten like 30 million. I mean, Somersault's gotten 30 million in investment, and their stuff is so knockoffable. It's just normal swimsuits, you know. But and they're $100. They're not as expensive as mine, but they're still expensive. But still, you don't see knockoffs on Amazon. So I assume they're kind of going after people, and they've built a brand, and people love that brand. So I don't think it's the kiss of death, but it would suck.
Yeah. No, it would be another thing to have to fight. It's one of the, remember in the beginning we were talking about things that suck and having to do the things like deal with wet
Yes.
boxes and things. It's one of
Right.
those things that I would chalk up to that.
Right. Yeah.
Especially
Like
in the
it's hard
short
enough.
term.
It's hard enough without that. Definitely.
Well, Leila, please tell everyone where they can, find more about you and more about your swimsuits and everything, and get in touch with you if you so want to share that.
Okay, it's www.ta3swim is the website. And you can follow us on Instagram, which is at TA3swim. And you can always DM me. I'm always on Instagram.
Awesome, and they absolutely should. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
I mean, I would say to anyone who's aspiring to be on Shark Tank, or any aspiring entrepreneurs in general, because like we talked about this a little in the beginning, but I have launched my own brand before that failed. I think it's so important. It makes it so much easier if you've figure out something that isn't already in the market, some twist on something that like really fills a need and that isn't really there in the market, because I can tell you that has made it, there's no way I could, like, we're at like multi-millions in sales right now.
Woo.
I could have never gotten to that point with something where I'd have to compete with big guys. Like it would have been impossible. And I eventually will, like when they come out with similar products. But I was able to find something that was like a little, shaping swimsuits isn't a big category. So I would definitely encourage people, if they're going to put their money and their heart and their soul and their everything into something, find something where there's like a white space.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And find, do the Google search. That's what I do. I get an idea, I go right to Google and I start Googling like the different words that could possibly find that thing. And then if I can't find it, then I know I'm on to something, and then take that
Right.
next step.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's just a Google search away.
Yeah.
Leila, thank you so much for being here on the Super Joe Pardo Show. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here and
My
to get to
pleasure.
chat and get to know you. And it's great that you wanted to be here. So thank you.
Oh, so much fun. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, I'll see you in one of these two videos over here. Take care.